Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our special live today. I'm here with Alex from the SBA to talk about the EIDL Goodwill Period, EIDL Hardship, and a lot of other exciting changes that you and your team have been working on, Alex. So thanks again for being a recurring guest. I think we have you once every 6 months or so, and it's been a huge help to, millions of the especially COVID idle borrowers. So great to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for working with their schedule. I know we were supposed to have this call yesterday and we had some urgent things come up, but appreciate you guys working around our schedule and finding time for us today.
Absolutely. And we were still able to do a live yesterday, and we saw some of those last minute changes that you and the team have been working on, which is exciting. So we'll definitely get into the changes to the hardship accommodation that now anyone with some constraints can enroll. But just want to say you've had changes on your end. You're now the Director, Office of Financial Assistance. Is that right?
Yeah, right now I'm the acting director for the Office of Financial Assistance, which oversees the SBA's policy for its 7A, 504, microloan, secondary market, and also the disaster lending programs. So, and in addition to that, I'm still doing the previous role that I had as the director for disaster lending communications.
So basically 2 roles.
yeah, just kind of little expanded responsibilities right now. But it's great. They have a great team in the Office of Financial Assistance, a great team of policy experts over there. So it's been a real pleasure working with them.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. And just to share a little bit of background, I think a lot of the folks tuned in have been following the changes since, let's say, March or April 2020, and the history of COVID idle all along the way, which we repeat lots of times. Some of the big changes were, of course, after that 30-month deferment, when payments started becoming due, you and the team implemented the hardship accommodation for 6 months. Then it's extended now up to 2 years. Share a little bit about the intent behind. I mean, you've been doing so much to basically avoid defaults. Talk a little bit about that and what's been guiding a lot of these policy decisions you've made.
Yeah, so I know we've talked about this before, but we're a little bit limited in some of the things that we can do to help with repayment on the loans. One question we get asked a lot is about forgiveness. So, as you know, we don't have the authority to forgive disaster loans, and that includes the COVID-19 EIDL loans. But what we can do is, try to be as flexible as possible on giving borrowers some repayment relief to help them through temporary hardships. And so we launched that hardship accommodation plan to drastically reduce the payments down to 10% of the normal payment or a minimum of $25 for a 6-month period. And we also allowed them to enroll in that in consecutive 6-month periods. And then after that, then they would be, if they wanted to continue, then the percentage would increase gradually over the next year in 6-month periods. So we've tried to, give them an avenue to, begin making payments, keep the loan from falling delinquent and suffering, some of the more negative implications of having a default on a federal debt, like being referred to Treasury. But in December, we announced that we were updating our process on how we were handling collections for loans that went into delinquency, and that the COVID idle and also the Paycheck Protection Program loans that were $100,000 or less would also be referred to Treasury if they were delinquent based on recent information that we had received on the cost benefit analysis of sending those. So we found that it was cost positive to refer those to Treasury. We're going to begin doing that, but instead of doing it immediately, we introduced this 60-day goodwill period, which lasts until March 3rd, to give borrowers who are delinquent and otherwise would be referred to Treasury an opportunity to get back into repayment before that happens, because for whatever reason they might have been operating under the belief that these could not be referred to Treasury, but the information, the best available information has changed, and that process has been updated. So we hope that people who are delinquent on their COVID EIDL and their paycheck protection program will work to get those back into good standing. So for the paycheck protection program loans, that means also they have an opportunity still until the end of loan maturity to have those forgiven. For the COVID EIDL loans, that they have an opportunity still to get onto the hardship accommodation plan and begin making reduced payments. And we can talk about some of the changes that rolled out this week on
absolutely
giving people more access to the hardship.
Well, that's it. Those are big changes, and I shared that press release from January 5th a second ago, giving this kind of correcting information, saying like, look, doesn't matter if you're under 100K or over 100K, you're responsible for payments. You're going to pursue people, but that you've given this window until March 3rd, which is, I think, just over 2 weeks away. So that's what we're talking about here. 2 weeks to, if you're behind on payments, to essentially enroll in hardship or make full payments, right?
Yes. So previously, when we introduced the hardship accommodation plan, it was only available to you if
Oh, Alex, your audio froze there.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, excuse me. Previously, when we introduced the hardship accommodation, you had to be in good standing in order to enroll in it. So if you were, delinquent on the loan, you had to resolve that first. And that was an obstacle, I think, for many people. But one of the changes that we introduced this week is that we've removed that restriction. So now, if you are delinquent on your loan, if you're late on your payments, you can enroll in the hardship accommodation plan. The best way to do that for your COVID EIDL loan is to go into the My SBA loan portal, which you can access through lending.sba.gov. And when you're in your account, you should see an option there to enroll in the hardship accommodation plan. If you do not see that option there, you should contact us either by phone or email to the COVID EIDL Customer Service Center to find out why. It could be that there is some type of a hold code or something like that on your file, or maybe it has already been referred to Treasury and cross-servicing, and you'll have to work with the Treasury offset team directly in order to resolve the outstanding debt. Because if it's more than 180 days delinquent and had already been referred to Treasury, then we're not going to be able to enroll it and resume payments. You'll have to work with Treasury on that.
I do want to double click on that. That's a big point. I think a lot of the questions we're seeing in the comments are people who've been referred to the Treasury and what to do, but it's not all one size fits all. So I want to talk about those dates, but I just want to show what you just mentioned, lending.sba.gov, to go in. And so if you log in and the hardship changes you made yesterday, someone may see now the ability to enroll. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, I think I've even seen some people sharing that news with others on some of these channels. That yeah, they went in one day, it wasn't there, and then they checked again yesterday, and the option was available to them. So, so yeah, definitely, I encourage people to go back into the portal and check if your file was referred to Treasury, and you've already received that notice. Continue to check, and at the end of the week, hopefully that option is available to you. But if it doesn't come up, it could be that your file is more than 180 days delinquent, and in that case, you're going to have to work with Treasury on.
Yeah, let's talk about that. If you can share those key differences between, let me try to get this here, between when you can automatically pull things back from the Treasury versus when you have to work with the Treasury. And the follow-up is, what's the Treasury being told? If someone goes to the Treasury, they may say, go to the SBA. So clarify that. I think people are feeling stuck.
Right.
In some cases. Yeah.
So hold on a second, I'm trying to fix the lighting here a little bit. So yeah, at 120 days is when a delinquent file is referred to Treasury. Now, obviously, we've put a pause on that for loans that are 100,000 or less during this goodwill period. But if your loan is over that, then that was always in effect for you, and it may have already been referred to Treasury. Another 60 days after that, so 60 days after you've reached the 120-day mark, is when it can go to cross-servicing. And at that point, SBA cannot pull the loan back. You have to work with Treasury. So people may get, one borrower who calls, who's been notified they've been referred to Treasury, can work with us in order to begin resuming payments. But another person who's maybe so far delinquent, who's been referred to Treasury, may contact us and be told, no, you have to work with Treasury. So what I'm seeing happening is different people are sharing their different, the different responses that they've gotten from customer service. And it really is dependent on the status of the loan and how far delinquent it is. And I think that's why you're seeing, it's not always the same response for everybody who's been referred to Treasury. You have about a 60-day window there after it's been referred to them to act and still get it back into repayment before, SBA can't assist you with that. And instead you'll have to work with Treasury.
Absolutely. So 180 days is that kind of number to keep in mind. If it's over 180 days, you've got to go to Treasury.
Mm-hmm.
And what's I assume the Treasury's been informed to the extent that yet. What's that process like? If it's been in cross servicing, there's a path to getting it back to the SBA to continue payments.
So when it's been referred to Treasury, and so what I can do is tell you how it should work for those loans that have been referred to Treasury and the borrower successfully enrolls in a hardship accommodation plan with us, because they're still within that 120-day to 180-day window. When they enroll in that hardship accommodation plan, SBA will retrieve the loan back from Treasury. But what I can't do is tell you Treasury's process for when it's in cross servicing and how the borrower has to work with them. That's really, something that they'll have to deal directly with Treasury on. So I don't want to speculate or share wrong information when we have so many, borrowers who are potentially in that situation, and give them, false expectations.
Absolutely. We'll try to find out if there's a path, but for folks who may be in that situation. We do see a lot of questions on people who've made consistent payments on still getting notices that they're behind. I'm not sure if there's something that you've seen or why that might be happening.
Yeah, that really shouldn't occur once you're in So let's say somebody was delinquent and started to receive those notifications from us, and we notify them through multiple channels. We'll send emails. They'll be on a call list to receive like a recorded message, and they may even receive paper notifications in the mail. But once you enroll in the hardship accommodation plan, we should remove you from those lists, and you shouldn't receive those anymore. But one thing that might occur, that might be occurring with those kinds of cases that people are reporting, is if they've been on the hardship accommodation plan for, the 6-month period, and then it ends and they don't manually adjust their payments back to the normal amount that it resumes to, and instead they just continue making those, reduced payments after that period has ended. What's the payments are being recorded in there as partial payments, and they will fall back delinquent again. So it's possible in some of those cases, people might be describing, where they were on the hardship and they believe they're still in that same 6-month period, not realizing that it's ended, and they should have been making the full payments, or they needed to re-enroll in another hardship accommodation period. And instead, the system is recording their partial payments as falling delinquent.
Got it. And could they see this status on the lending.sba.gov when they log in to see if they are in fact in hardship or out of approved hardship?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we encourage people to continue to follow the portal and use that to check on the status of their loans. I know it's difficult sometimes, life gets in the way, and you just, you don't always go in and check some of those account things, especially if you set up something on recurring payments. It's sort of like it's a set and forget kind of thing, but we really need them to go in and check those, especially if you're getting some kind of a notification from us, just to ensure, your account is in good standing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have heard cases where if you set up auto payments at a certain amount and then you were approved for, let's say, a 10% hardship, it's taken some figuring out to get off that original auto debit set up through pay.gov to get on a new payment plan. But but I think it was about a year ago when you first. Was it a year ago when you launched lending.sba.gov and the new portal?
Yeah, it was almost exactly a year ago we launched the portal. And at first it was just, the primary users were the COVID EIDL borrowers. That was the largest portfolio of account holders who were utilizing the portfolio. And then we began to introduce other programs and services into the portal. Like there's a vet certification feature in there. And then just before the new year, we introduced a new streamlined disaster loan application where you can apply for disaster loans through the portal. And then in the coming year, we're going to introduce some more features. There will be, I don't want to, get ahead of the administration's announcement of those things, but there's going to be other enhancements that we're going to release. And so that portal is really going to be, a great tool to stay engaged with the different products and services that you can take advantage of from SBA. And it'll be a great way to communicate with us too, because for you remember what it was like during COVID on, communicating back and forth with the borrowers and SBA. A lot of it was happening through just email accounts. Mm-hmm. And the portal, gives us a much better, safe and secure platform for borrowers to communicate with us and not have to worry about, is this email that I'm getting legitimate? Because we've seen a lot of scams and, phishing email attempts out there, trying to, just trying to take advantage of really unfortunate situations. So the portal is, I can't encourage people strongly enough to utilize that, not just for managing your account, but also for communicating with us if you have questions, because you'll be sure that you're hearing directly from us on something.
100%. We've seen that. I think we covered in a couple videos, these phony EIDL forgiveness forms. I don't know if you saw those as well, but people taking advantage. I mean, scammers are still out there, so it's a good reminder.
Yeah,
portal.
just be really vigilant, and just closely monitor your credit report, just to make sure, because with any of these federal programs, there's a requirement for us to share the data on who receives the funding. So whether it's grants or loans or things that we've approved with taxpayer dollars, we have a statutory requirement to share information on who the recipients are through sources like usaspending.gov and others. So that's where I think a lot of that stuff is probably generated from, and it's scams are really unfortunate, but people's information could be out there, and it's not a lot of information, but it's enough for them to put together like a phony call list or a phony email list or phony mailing list, and attempt to take advantage of people.
Yes. And hopefully people continue to adopt messaging on the portal here, and it's secure. There's two-factor authentication. I do want to loop back to, I want to get to the best way to contact if you have questions. But before that, I mean, most of the questions we're seeing are around hardship, of course, and either not being able to enroll. I just want to reemphasize the point for people who've just tuned in. As of yesterday, even if you're behind on payments, you should be able to enroll in the hardship accommodation. And if you don't if you can't do it automatically on your portal, you can message through the portal. But Alex, is there any discussion about proactively getting those loans back from the Treasury? I guess 2 weeks left in the goodwill period. You're advising, and you're going to be doing communication to borrowers who are behind, saying, like, if you click this button, you'll get it back. You agree to make payments. Is there any talk about proactively pulling back from the Treasury and then telling people to enroll?
So it really requires a first step on the borrower's behalf. We're not going to pull back all of the files from Treasury before they've made any kind of effort, to get back into some type of repayment plan. So we need them to do that first, and then we can pull it back from Treasury. But what we've done is, try to reach out to them and let them know, like, this is about to happen. There's another fresh round of emails and recorded messages that are going to begin this week for COVID idle borrowers with loans of $100,000 or less, who are eligible to enroll in the hardship accommodation plan right now. And so those will start going out. It won't be everybody all at once on the same day, because if we were to do that, we would probably get a flood of calls coming back into the customer service center. People, you get a message, you don't listen to the whole thing, and you might just call the customer service line back, and you don't want to overwhelm the phone lines. So we'll do it in waves and monitor the traffic, but those notices are going to start to go out. So yeah, we really need people to take that first step. Read the messages that we send to you, listen to the recorded message, and take some action. Go into the portal and enroll in the hardship accommodation plan if you need a reduced payment in order to get your loan back in good standing.
Absolutely. And approximately how many folks is this affecting of the 4 million or so borrowers, a little less COVID EIDL borrowers that have been delinquent or behind? And I don't know if this was in public reports, but we're talking the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands?
Oh gosh, I don't have a number. And those are always difficult too, because the portfolio like that fluctuates, right? Like, from one day to the next, you have people sliding into and out of, what's considered delinquent. But yeah, I don't have good numbers on that. Hopefully at the end of this campaign, maybe we can circle back and I can share, what some of those numbers were and how many people we successfully were able to assist and get back into the hardship accommodation plan. If you remember when we first launched it almost a year ago, it wasn't given like a big public rollout because it was considered, a sort of a last resort if you were experiencing like a true financial hardship, and we didn't want borrowers to be quick to enroll in it just because they were, attracted to the idea of making lower payments, because in the end, it does increase the deferred interest that you still owe at the end of the loan. So we left it as an option that we would present to people when they reached out to us to let us know they were having a hardship. And so it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a big outreach campaign that we were doing to let everybody know, hey, this is available, come sign up for this. It was, because honestly, we wanted to reserve it as an option just for those businesses that, had no other ways of making their payments. And now we're in a situation where, some of those businesses that didn't take any action for whatever the reason might be, are going to face, the possibility of getting referred to Treasury for offset and escalating collection efforts, which we don't want anybody to have to go through. So hopefully they will follow the advice and the instructions in the emails and the other notifications that are going out.
I hope so, and I am seeing a lot of comments here for folks who have gotten up to speed. Maybe they paid a lump sum before this change, when you had to pay a lump sum to get back in good standing. I assume that just means you're further along. And I'm glad you brought up that balloon payment again, because it's one of the things we tried to emphasize in previous conversations, that it's, don't make the hardship a default unless it's necessary, because you're paying more over the lifetime of the loan. Most people, they don't want to think about 2050 when these become due, but it's you end up paying more. So it's a good. So I'm seeing some positive comments about that. I'm also seeing people talking about high delinquency rate in the 30s. I don't know if there's if it's been in a public report yet, kind of, and that number is changing, like you mentioned. So even if, let's say, a high number is behind, I would be curious to loop back in 3 weeks time and say how many people you were able to save, quote unquote, from the Treasury.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm willing to come back and we can have a separate discussion about that. But I don't have any numbers available right now to share on the call. Unless somebody's like pulling those from the public reports, then it's probably, I hear a lot of people speculate about what they think it is. But even the ones that are shared on the public reports, like you said, they're snapshots. That's as of whatever, quarter it was that those were run in. Those numbers could improve or could get worse. It just depends on which way the trends are going.
Absolutely. And then there was a question around the 200,000 or higher EIDL loans. I know those are the smaller total amount. What's the case there in terms of third and fourth hardships, or because you won't have the button on the portal,
right? So the process is still the same. If your loan is $200,000 or more, there is still a initial manual step you need to do in order to enroll in the hardship. You need to contact us, and there's instructions on how to do that, both on in the portal, but also on SBA.gov/pay, PAY, has instructions on how to enroll in the hardship accommodation plan. for loans that are $200,000 or less and ones that are over. So, but that process is still, you have to submit a request to us. We review it. We may ask for some additional information. But one good thing is that, this restriction that we lifted on having to be current before you could enroll in the reduced payments applies to loans of any size for COVID EIDL. So it's not just for loans that are $100,000 or less. It's even for the larger loans. So if you're, if you're late on your payments on that, you can still enroll in the hardship.
Yeah, that's great news. And then there's a couple important questions before we wrap, but I guess I also want to ask, do you feel the hardship has been successful? Like, let's say 16 months ago when you first rolled it out, or 15 months ago, November 22, how has it, met expectations or surpassed in terms of people taking advantage of it?
So, yeah, I definitely think it's been successful. I've been with the agency for 17 years, and I've seen us take steps to, extend relief options to borrowers after all kinds of, disasters. Usually the most we've been able to do is just defer their loans, defer them for maybe a couple of months, maybe 6 months, and maybe do it automatically without them having to ask about it, just to give them the relief. But being able to give them a period where they can continue to make payments at such a reduced rate, I think is really beneficial, because it keeps them in the habit also of making those payments, continuing to check in the portal on their account. Like we said before, when we had those really extended periods of deferment, it was, sort of like a, set and forget kind of thing. I think people just kind of lost track of the interest accrual that was happening on their loans that they had taken out, because they weren't hearing from us all of the time. We gave them the benefit of the deferment, but then eventually when they did enter repayment, and they started making those, they didn't see the interest dropping, or they didn't see the principal balance dropping as they were making payments, because all of it was going towards the accrued interest first. And, so there was also sort of like a learning curve there. I think you guys even saw it on your channel with questions and things of people saying, been making a couple payments now and haven't seen the principal move at all. And then they came to the realization that, okay, the way the payments are structured, the payments go to the accrued interest first, and then you start to, make some headway on the principal balance. So, yeah, I think the hardship accommodation plan has been a great option for those people who, were in a tough situation when the loans entered repayment. It's encouraged, I think, good repayment habits. And it's also been really great that we've been able to couple it with the My SBA loan portal, which I think gives them a much improved user experience compared to what was initially out there for them. Because I think you remember too, a lot of the feedback was, this isn't user friendly. It's not intuitive. There was a lot of confusion and questions about, having to use one system for, accessing their account and checking to see what their payment was. And then they would have to go over to pay.gov in order to schedule their payments, which was like a different login. We've made a single portal that allows them to do all of that now. I think overall it's been successful.
We've seen tons of positive comments there too. Okay, a few pressing questions as we get close to wrapping. One is on the status update. I think you maybe briefly referenced this, but if they're awaiting a status change on their portal, there may be a delay. Is that right? Some people may be feeling anxious if their status hasn't changed or updated correctly.
So usually I think it's like maybe a 1 to 2 day delay on the status once you've enrolled in the hardship.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would, like give it like 1 to 2 days. And then if you're not seeing the change you're looking to see, then maybe reach out to us. But otherwise, I'm not sure specifically what type of status change they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what the couple of the comments were about. And then if someone had paid a lump sum, again, before this change of saying you can get in good standing with partial payments, if it's still stuck with the Treasury, just to reiterate what you mentioned towards the beginning, if
Mhm.
it's within 180 days of it being sent to the Treasury, the SBA can request it back.
Mhm.
If the borrower initiates that request, so you won't do it on their behalf. They'll need to give a
Right.
message or mark
Yeah,
them.
we're not going to do like a blanket recall of all of the loans that have been sent to Treasury. But what we will do is for those that enter, that begin making payments again, whether that's through the hardship accommodation or, some other way, like you mentioned, if they made like a lump sum payment or whatever to get the loan back current, and they get back in good standing, we'll pull those back from Treasury.
Yeah,
So long as they're not 180 days or more in what's called cross servicing.
yeah, absolutely. And so I shared it at the beginning here, but this is, if people are curious about any of this, the press release is on well, not the press release for this news that just came out as of yesterday, but again, you have until March 3rd to get in good standing, to get up to speed on payments. Then after that, is this right, Alex? You'll continue to send delinquent loans to the Treasury. That's after 120 days if you're behind.
Yeah. So this March 3rd, the 60-day goodwill period that ends on March 3rd, that was really like a pause for the Paycheck Protection Program and COVID EIDL loans that were delinquent that are of $100,000 or less. Because that's the category of loans that had the update to the collections process.
Mhm.
So, but for loans that are more than that, those could have already been sent to Treasury. That was always the process for loans over 100,000. There was no change or update to that collection process at all.
Okay.
So, as far as the goodwill period goes of this, like we won't begin sending them to Treasury. That really just applies to the $100,000 or less.
Mhm.
But the options that are open to you to get the loan back in repayment, like say the hardship accommodation plan for COVID EIDL, that's going to be open to loans of any amount. So whether your loan's 150,000 or 200,000, you'll still have the option to enter the hardship accommodation plan, even if it is if you're late on your payments, and you won't have to bring it current.
Yeah. Uh, Great. Um, Very helpful information. And then for everyone watching too, I'll probably make chapters. So if people want to, because we just covered a lot, giving a summary might take a while too, but I think the long of the short is hopefully if you are behind on EIDL payments, you log in at lending.sba.gov and you can see if you can enroll in hardship automatically or by messaging and get in good standing. So, Alex, this has been incredibly helpful, and just want to echo again, the changes that you and the team have made over the past few years have all been to try to help people, help business owners, help entrepreneurs wherever they're at. And so I think it's important to recognize it's a lot of flexibility that you've been trying to give people. You can't
Mhm.
pay now. Here are some options. So
Mhm.
there's probably people who just go MIA, but hopefully if people have their proper emails on file, etc., they will be notified of these options.
Yeah, that's another thing I should mention, right? It's a good thing for anybody who's responding to one of the communications that they receive to us. When you go into the portal, or if you're contacting us, at the customer service center, make sure we've got your updated contact information. So that way, make sure any like important notifications go to your email account that you're using, your primary one. If you've changed your mailing address, or something like that, or if you have a new email address that you're using, or a different phone number, because if there are any other future, expanded, flexibilities or things like that that we think you may benefit from, that's how we're going to communicate with you. Those push notifications. So you just have to make sure that we've got updated contact information for you.
Absolutely. And just because you've moved or something is not, just because you don't get the notification doesn't mean your social or your TIN or your EIN are affected. That number, it will be affected if you just get.
Yeah, it's a federal debt. It will follow you, even if you change an address or your email account. Yes.
Yeah, just want to make sure people don't think that. Just to reemphasize that. But Alex, this is incredible. And to everyone who asked lots of good questions today, even if we didn't answer them all, encourage you to go log in lending.sba.gov, send a message there. But I'll gather some more questions, Alex. And if there's, we can do a follow-up in a few weeks, especially when the Goodwill ends, and maybe we can get a sense of how successful this campaign and this push was.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ryder.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks everyone for joining.